What's going on, everyone? This is John here with Charlie, Roundtable Jets podcast. A good bit to talk about this week, Charlie. Obviously, the Justin Fields situation. Talk a little bit about the Patriots game, which happened last Thursday. Um, some Lamar injury news and the Ravens look ahead, and then obviously, the everlasting question about who the Jets are going to have at quarterback moving forward. So, I'll let you start here. I guess walk me through the Patriots game, what you kind of thought there, what went wrong, and whatnot.
Yeah, it kind of felt like they had a good game plan going in terms of what they were going to do defensively and offensively on that first drive. I mean, they marched right down the field and scored that opening touchdown, something they don't do very often this season. But then just throughout the game, the glaring difference between the Jets roster and the Patriots rosters became incredibly clear. The Patriots have a franchise quarterback in Drake May who can just continuously operate that offense at a high level, and then the inconsistencies of Justin Fields just kind of down the stretch just got worse and worse, and it all culminated in that fourth quarter fumble that essentially put the final nail in the coffin for the Jets. Because up until that point, it was still a one-score game, but yeah, the Patriots just they have something that the Jets don't, and that's stability at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I think that was obviously the clear part of that game. And as you again kind of look at Justin Fields, I know he's benched now, but he's 15 to 26, takes 2 sacks, only one touchdown on the air. He did rush one in, but again, it just felt like the difference in another game for the Jets is the quarterback position. And until you figure that out, it's not really going to change. And the frustrating part to me now is like, not only do the Jets not have a quarterback, but now the Patriots have found another one. And I mean, they're 9-2 now. I mean, as of now, Charlie, they're kind of, I don't want to say running away with the East. The Bills only have 3 losses, but like they look to be a better team than Buffalo is right now, as crazy as it might sound when entering the year. And kind of a favorable schedule towards the end. I mean, they play the Bengals, the Giants, they have the Bills and Ravens, but then they end with the Jets and the Dolphins. And it's like, well, those are games you should probably win at least 4 of those games right there. So, um, but for the Jets again, I think this was a game that Aaron Glenn really wanted to win. I know just kind of listening to the shows and everything and people talking, it seemed like, when the year started, he said, hey, I want to get this marquee win for the Jets at some point. And there really isn't a better way to do that than by beating the Patriots. And, as we know, the Jets obviously haven't found any success against New England over the past, what it seems like decade now at this point. And I'm pretty sure even over the past few years, there was a stretch where New England had won like 10 plus games in a row. It was just ugly. So again, they didn't get blown out. So there were some positives. I don't think the defense has played horribly, since moving on from Sauce and Quinnen. It didn't change a lot, at least from that standpoint. So that was good to see. But I guess we can get into our next topic here, Charlie, because it kind of, goes into this. And it was just another game where Justin Fields wasn't good enough. And when you look at his whole body of work throughout the year, it's just that's all there is to really say at this point.
Yeah, and I mean the stats don't look like terrible at first glance. Like
Yeah.
there's not a lot of turnovers, but it's just the fact of the matter is the offense doesn't operate at a high enough level consistently enough. Fields averages less than 140 passing yards a game, despite his low turnovers and what he does on the ground, and he can't get the ball out on time, as you said, John. Just takes too many sacks, and what the Jets have to do right now in these remaining 5-6 games that they have left is evaluate the rest of the roster around the quarterback position, because obviously there's going to be someone new there next year. It's not going to be Fields. It's probably not going to be Tyrod Taylor, who was Justin Fields was benched for, but at least Tyrod Taylor can get these young receivers the ball on time, and Mason Taylor, the young tight end. They got to get these guys involved in the passing game, get them reps, and Tyrod Taylor is just going to do a better job of that than Justin Fields can at this point in the season, and that's what they're hoping for. That's going to start on Sunday against Baltimore. Baltimore's got one of the lower ranked passing defenses in all of football, and just a very matter of fact statement is Tyrod Taylor is a better passing quarterback than Justin Fields is, and Fields' play throughout the season obviously has shown that.
Yeah, and I think Aaron Glenn kind of did a good job of giving that as the reason why the Jets are going in this direction. I actually have the quote right here. And he said, obviously, offensively, you want your passing game to be better, and it's not totally on Fields. There's a number of things that go into that. But I mean, the harsh reality is obviously Glenn's not going to come out and say everything is Justin Fields' fault. We know that. It was him. It was his idea essentially to bring Fields in, hoping that he could be the next Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield to kind of revive their careers. And I understood the idea when the Jets did it. You knew this year was going to be pretty horrible to begin with. Obviously, to say the least, it hasn't worked out at all. But that's definitely a factor that what was considered. And so the one thing I kind of look at for Fields too, and to your point about Taylor just knowing how to run an offense better in the pass game, simple as that. Like he's played in 9 games this year and he's only thrown 204 passes. That's like 22.6 passes per game, and it's like when you have a running quarterback, is it that big of a deal? Maybe not. But then when you factor in that the Jets are pretty much like either in a close game or losing every game in obvious pass situations, and he still only has not even 23 pass attempts per game, it's almost like what took so long to bench him? And again, like I said, I understood the idea, but you just can't keep running him out here. I mean, he has 4 games this year with over 200 passing yards, and every single one of them besides one came in a loss. The past 3 of the past 4 weeks, he's thrown for under 120 yards, and 2 of them were 54, and the other was 46 against the Panthers. I know he got benched in that too, essentially. But it's just like, at some point something has to give, and obviously he's not the answer.
Yeah, no. And I think we talked about this, sort of touched on it last week, but I think this was going to happen a lot sooner, a lot earlier. That week they played Cincinnati. I think Tyrod was going to be in line to start before he suffered that late knee injury, and that kind of kept him out. Fields picks up a win against Cincinnati, rides it into Cleveland, gets a win there, and I guess Glenn just kind of wanted to roll with the hot hand. But yeah, at a certain point, you just enough's enough. You got to pull the plug. Yeah,
and do you think? I've seen some Jets fans and even reported like Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic said, maybe Brady Cook should get a shot. He's an undrafted rookie out of Missouri. I pondered that idea for a bit, and he was okay at Mizzou. I mean, he played 5 years, but really only 3. I believe he was kind of like, red shirt or whatever the first year, and then didn't play a whole lot his technical sophomore season. But he played there for 5 years. He threw for 9,008 yards, 49 touchdowns, but I mean, he's older too for a rookie. There's obviously a reason why he went undrafted after playing okay in the SEC. So I don't want to say there's a ton of talent there. And to me, like, I'm kind of cool with Tyrod being the starter, and not even for the simple fact that he's better than what the Jets currently have, but because like if Cook were to come in and you look at these last 6 games for the Jets right now, like this, it would be the most Jets thing ever for this kid to come in and play like Mike White did a couple years ago, and then all of a sudden you think you have like this franchise quarterback. And it's like, oh, well, during the offseason, we're just going to build around Cook. Like, he comes out, he throws for 1,500 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, and you win like you beat the Dolphins and the Saints and Falcons. Everybody's like, oh, we're back. But in reality, like, you kind of just have some random dude under center. To me, honestly, like, what you have with Tyrod Taylor for these last 7 games. He's not a franchise quarterback. He could be a bridge guy again next year if you don't find who you want. But I'm kind of curious to hear if you think like starting an unproven rookie who doesn't even have a snap in the league would be ideal at all.
So I definitely don't think it's ideal. I mean, if we get to week 17, week 18, and there's nothing going on, and Tyrod Taylor, just the fact of the matter is he gets hurt a lot in a lot of the stops of his career. You go back to Chargers when he got punctured in the lung that led to Justin Herbert. When he was with the Giants, he got hurt a bunch of times. And I wouldn't be opposed to elevating Cook to the backup spot because at this point, Fields isn't giving you anything. You know what I mean? And Cook's at least, got some maybe to him. You know what I mean? Like you have no idea what he's bringing to the table. Could be nothing, could be something. But elevating him to the backup behind Tyrod in case Taylor does get hurt, I think is probably the way to go. It doesn't seem like that's what they're doing right now, which is sure, whatever. But, I mean, when you have a season that's just lost like this and you're not playing for anything at this point late in the season, why not give the undrafted rookie a chance? I mean, you don't know until you see what he's got on the field.
Yeah, and I also saw Zach Rosenblatt. He put out a good piece about like what the Jets could do with Fields, and it sounds like the assumption around the league right now is he's going to get cut during the offseason. It's not like I don't think anybody's sending even a 7th round pick for Justin Fields, just the harsh. But he did mention that the Jets actually worked out 2 quarterbacks earlier in the year. And I wouldn't hate the idea of bringing one of those guys in too. He spoke about Desmond Ritter and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Now, Ritter, I mean, you kind of look at his career, like he's pretty much been replaced twice for not being good enough. Falcons, he started a lot in 2023. He threw for 2,800 yards and 12 touchdowns, but he also threw 12 interceptions. And then, they go out the following offseason, get Kirk Cousins, and then replace Cousins essentially with Michael Penix. And then the Raiders, I guess in a way similar to the Jets, even now with Geno Smith, he doesn't look great. Like it's a team dying for quarterback success, and they were kind of good without playing him after, a handful of games. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I think you kind of look at his career in the preseason throughout the past few years. He's always looked really good, and he looks like he has something there. But to me, he's like a Walmart Justin Fields. He can make plays with his legs and stuff like that, but he's really not an NFL quarterback. And to that point, it's like if the Cleveland Browns are cutting you, that's typically a pretty bad sign when you look at what they've done quarterback-wise. But nonetheless, there are maybe some other quarterback options out there for the Jets after this whole Fields thing and what kind of goes on there. It'd be nice if it would click over for me, but it won't. All right, everybody, it's not letting me click. But as you can see here, we have the Kyler Murray rumors and what that can kind of mean for the Jets. Now, Kyler is hurt, apparently. But in a way, it almost feels like a quiet benching and the end of the relationship in Arizona. So what are your thoughts there, Charlie? If you were to get, Kyler, do you think there could be any upside to it, or you're off on him?
Kyler Murray is so interesting, right? Because he's like a guy who has all the talent in the world. He's a great arm. He's athletic. He's mobile. He can run around. But for whatever reason, here we are. I want to say 6-7 years into his NFL career, and he just hasn't been able to put it all together yet. And there's no real clear reason why. It's because it's not like he hasn't worked with any good coaches. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury got fired in Arizona, but he's obviously a good offensive play caller, as evidenced by the offenses they had in Arizona and what he's done with the Washington the last 2 years. And then even with Petzig and Gannon right now, there's been a lot of chatter about how that scheme isn't great. I know Marvin Harrison Sr. had some words about Petzig's offense, but I mean, Jacoby Brissett's operating that scheme at a high level right now. So it's the thing with Kyler Murray is it depends how you're getting him. If the Cardinals are trading that $230 million contract to you, it's probably you don't want to be stuck to Murray at that higher price tag. But there has been some chatter that if no one trades for him, they would just end up cutting him. And if you're taking a flyer on Kyler Murray at a reasonable contract, why not? But no, I would not be looking to trade for Kyler at this stage in his career, especially after what's gone on this season.
Sorry, Charlie, I must have hit something. But yeah, I was kind of in the same boat when it comes to Kyler. I've wrote about it a good bit here. Like, if you can get him for, let's say, a second and a third, and the Cardinals are telling you, hey, we're going to eat half this contract, which I don't think they would do. But if you're going to cut him, then you have to, pretty much eat the whole thing. It's like, yeah, I can get behind that. But to your point, like if the Cardinals view him as an NFL like starter guarantee, which he is, but he's not in that upper echelon or elite tier. Like if I'm the Jets, I would laugh them off the phone if they said, we had to eat, most of his contract, or if we were going to have to send like a first round pick or something ridiculous. Now, I am a little worried that's what Arizona is going to be seeking in a way, just because of how much they have paid him. And like, Kyler Murray is kind of one of those guys, and not that he's, Justin Fields isn't close to Kyler and what he's done throughout his career. But for the simple sense of like, there are guys in the NFL to me who the thought of them are a lot better than the actual player. And Kyler is like the perfect definition of that. And like to your point, right? We've seen Marvin Harrison throughout the past year and a half now. And like the dude can't get the football when Kyler is there. And like when he does, he doesn't catch it. It's like a very weird connection. So obviously, the quarterback is the more important position for a team, but that Marvin Harrison's kind of like your future guy with Trey McBride. I know, whatever. And then you look at like Jacoby Brissett, and he comes out. I know they got smoked against the 49ers, lost by 20, essentially 19 points, but he threw for 452 yards. And it's like throughout this whole year, like Kyler Murray hasn't even been close. At one point, wasn't even like at half of that. The most he threw for in a game was 220. So there's obviously some disconnect there. Now, on the flip side of that, if you look at like the 2020 Kyler Murray and the 2021 Kyler Murray, like you can talk me into it a little bit. Like, you won Offensive Rookie of the Year. There's a lot to kind of look back on and be like, you know what? We have a Pro Bowler 2 time. Like, the dude is pretty good. But again, to your point, it's like, at what price are you really gonna do this? Now, to me, the Jets are kind of in that situation where I do think people are kind of overlooking a trade. Obviously you have these picks this year, and then you also have the 2 picks the following year in the first round. And it's like, well, if I can go out and trade for a proven guy, I'd be willing to give up 3 first-round picks. Like, it doesn't just have to come in the draft. So I'm a bit curious to see what the Jets do on that front. So I guess, for you, like, if you're the Jets, are you trying to find the 22-year-old rookie, or are you okay with bringing in, I'm going to throw out like Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert if you ever had the chance? I don't think you will, but, the 27-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like when you're a team like the Jets and you've just had such poor luck and just you've taken so many swings on first-round quarterbacks over the years. Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold, Mark Sanchez, Geno Smith in the second round, who turned into a good. But both him and Darnold turned into good quarterbacks, but they just could not figure it out in New York. Why not, take a swing at the proven prospect? I mean, I know they just tried the Aaron Rodgers experiment literally less than 3-4 years ago, but that was a little different. He was, 39 on the back end of his prime. Trading for a guy like a CJ Stroud, a Kyler Murray, a Justin Herbert, a Joe Burrow, those guys are still in their prime, mid to late 20s, and it's a bit different and more energizing than trading for a guy like Aaron Rodgers per se.
Yeah. The funny part about Rodgers, too, is like, when you look at when the Jets traded for him, right, everybody in New York, that's all I heard on these WFAN and ESPN and this and that. Was like, well, we're the best team of football now. Like, we have this elite defense, Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. And it's like, yeah, if Rodgers, and it sucks for Jets fan, it really does, because I always think about the Jets, right, in the simple sense of, if Rodgers didn't walk out and, they had this big spiel for him and everything, and then the first drive, he literally snaps his Achilles. Like, that's, like, unfortunately, like, that's literally just the New York Jets. Like, that was the definition of the Jets. But I also don't want the Jets to look back on that and think like the Rodgers experiment was a failure, because I understand, the ultimate goal was to at least get to the playoffs. So in that sense, it was. But to me, it's like, if that never happened with Rodgers, you're probably looking at a little bit different of a scenario. I think you could have won 10 games. You might have won 11, whatever it was. You were good enough to get to that, next step, and that was getting to the playoffs at that point. And at this point, the Jets are still really trying to just climb that mountain. But I don't want them to view that thing as like an entire failure, in the sense of we shouldn't go after another proven quarterback, because I think there's a lot of value in that. Now, the Jets, it's not letting me click through. Oh, there we go. Finally, the Jets. They'll play a proven quarterback, I guess you could say, multi-time MVP winner. Last thing Lamar really only has to do in his career is figure some things out in the postseason and win a Super Bowl. If he does, he's going to go down as an all-timer. He's dealt with some injuries this year, and it sounds like now another injury could be kind of bothering him. Reports indicated yesterday that he's on the injury report again, but this time for his ankle, and he actually missed practice. Now, he did return to practice on Thursday. But obviously, if you're the Ravens, you're in a weird spot right now, to the point where you're in second place in the North, AFC North. You probably feel pretty good about jumping the Steelers, who were 6-4. But the unfortunate reality is like, you have to protect Lamar, but every game right now could matter, and you don't want to drop a game at home to the Jets, even if you think you can win it with your backup. We saw how the Ravens looked without Lamar, and honestly, they were probably the worst team in football at some point. And now Lamar comes back, and you've won 3 games in a row. They've won 4 in a row in total, but with Lamar, 3 straight. Dominated the Dolphins on Thursday Night Football a couple weeks ago. To me, they kind of dominated the Vikings too the following week. And then you play the Browns, which is always weird games, and they weren't great, but they came away with the win. They probably feel good going into this Jets game, but you think there's any chance we could not see him suit up?
I mean, when you're almost a 2 touchdown favorite, I think the line as of right now is 14.5. I think you have reason to believe that you could sit Lamar for a game here if you really needed to. I mean, the Ravens historically fairly dominant over the Jets. I believe Lamar's 2-0 against them in his career. And I mean, yeah, like you said, when Lamar was out and Cooper Rush was starting for the Ravens, they did in fact look like one of the worst teams in football. But then Tyler Huntley came in for that Bears game, kind of stabilized things, and they did win and beat that 7-3 Bears team as they are now.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Lamar's healthy enough to play like he has been the last few weeks. I think you play him just because as this Ravens team who's trying to overtake Pittsburgh in the AFC North, you just want to keep things rolling the way they are now. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And hey, if you go up 2 touchdowns early in the half, then you can pull Lamar for Tyler Huntley and let him ride it out the rest of the way.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of thinking here too. And it's like, Wednesdays at practice are probably the nice little chill days in some sense. It's still middle of the week, essentially. The Ravens know best at this point when it comes to Lamar that there's certainly an injury factor to him. But ultimately, we're kind of in the mix of this thing right now towards the end of the season. So even if you're 75%, I get it. It is the Jets. People are going to laugh, but they're still an NFL team at the end of the day. They've proven that, over the past few weeks that they can win some games. They did beat the Bengals. They beat the Browns. So, they have had some success against the North at least. So, obviously the Ravens don't want to be, the next one in line, but we can kind of go into that next, Charlie, here. With this Ravens game, now, like you and I both just said, we do think Lamar will play. But for the Jets perspective, we already know Tyrod Taylor's going to start. We know this, and that. And, I get it. But like you said, Charlie, Vegas often knows, and 14.5 points is pretty telling. I think even if it's not a blowout, it's pretty safe to say that the Ravens are going to come away with this one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the only real way I could see the Jets staying in this is if the pass rush, which hasn't been great the last few weeks since they lost Quinnen Williams, can somehow find a way to keep putting pressure on Lamar or whoever's back there, because that Ravens offensive line has been one of their big weaknesses so far this year. And if Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald can get going, maybe you got a chance of staying in this game, keeping it a one possession game, But I just don't see that as very likely, especially with how the Jets have been defensively this year with stopping the run. I could see Derrick Henry taking this game, storming through the gates and kicking down the door.
Yeah, the one thing with Derrick Henry, Charlie, is you kind of looked at his early start of the year, and he rushed for 169 against the Bills that first game, but then he rushed for 23, 50, 42, and 33. Now, I know Lamar was out in those games, so there's definitely a factor in that, with not opening up the run game with the passing, doing what they have to do. But now, since Lamar's been back, Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry again, and nobody should be surprised. I mean, he rushed for 119 against the Dolphins, 75 against the Vikings, which for him is a pretty bad game, but for most is good. And then last week, which I consider a pretty good Browns defense in general, 103 and a touchdown. So, if he comes out and rushes for 120 this weekend, especially if that Lamar injury is even slightly bothering him and they rely on the run, I don't think the Jets are going to have enough to keep up, even with Tyrod maybe putting up some more points than usual. That is one thing I'm considering a bit with this Jets game in a sense, because as you kind of look back at what the Jets losses have been, right? Like the Broncos, you scored 11 points. The Panthers, you scored 6 points. Last week, you scored 14. You gave up 27, but those other games, you were right there. And it was simply because your offense couldn't score that you were there. So, there's maybe the outside chance of hey, the defense can almost keep up with a lot of teams, and if Tyrod can just be an average NFL quarterback, we have a chance. But the more I've thought about this throughout the week, that's the only way the Jets have a chance. I just like you and I said, this game is too big for the Ravens. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, totally. I mean, because let's be honest, they really can't afford to drop a game like this. Yeah, they have 2 games to go against Pittsburgh, but just dropping one behind them would just put them deeper in the hole they already dug for themselves during that time where Lamar was out. So yeah, I'm sure they'll be trying their hardest and trying to make sure they don't try and sleepwalk through this one.
Yeah, and as you kind of look, as we finish this up here, as you look at kind of the Jets, rest of the season, things get a bit easier after this. Now they will play the Falcons. And I believe that'll be week 13 at the time, so 2 weeks from now, essentially a week and a half. Michael Penix is out for the year. Now, I'm not a big Penix guy, and I actually think Kirk Cousins could probably run that offense a little better, although we've seen it and it hasn't looked great. So I don't know. Um, and you got the Dolphins, who the Jets have competed with in recent years, but it always feels like the Dolphins kind of beat them too. But the Dolphins are pretty bad, and I know they're playing better, but it's a game you could probably win. You do play the Jaguars, who are improved, but again, I don't really think much of the Jaguars. And then you have the Saints. Then you finish the year with the Patriots and Bills. So, if the Jets could win this one, maybe they can go on a little stretch. I don't know. Probably not feeling too good about that, but there are some winnable games nonetheless. So hopefully, next Thursday or next Wednesday when Charlie and I are here, we'll have some better things to talk about. Maybe, Tyrod Taylor throws for 300 yards and Breece Hall looks like the former star he was and everything. So you never know in the NFL. But for right now, that's going to do it from Charlie and I with the Jets Roundtable podcast. It's our third episode. You can check them all out at Roundtable Jets page. And during the game, we'll have some content. You'll see some content on the site. So let us know how you guys feel heading into this one. But Charlie and I aren't feeling too good about it. So unfortunately about that, but we will see you guys next week, and hope everybody has a good rest of the week.